The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
And hello and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Darren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our community, as well as around the world. Coming up on today's show, we'll bring you the latest headlines in local, national, and international news. Plus, we'll sit down with an organization strengthening the values of our youth through an athletic approach. Plus, in a world filled with violence and war, we take a closer look at how the media can shape opinions. We'll hear from one man providing a workshop designed to make a difference. And we'll also hear how local officials and community groups have come together to put an end to discrimination. And a little later on, we'll take a look at an event to promote the rich culture and arts right here in our Bronx community. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way, because right now, we're officially open. And hello everyone, I'm your host Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, June the 5th, 2013. Of course, you're watching Open, the only live and interactive program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We want to encourage you to stay connected to us. You can find out more about us on Twitter at BronxNetTV and always on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, leading things off with national news, in Washington, President Barack Obama nominated 3 judges to the Federal Appeals Court on Tuesday. The nomination set up an aggressive push against Senate Republicans working to prevent the president from appointing any more judges to the influential circuit. Now, according to the Associated Press, this is the first time in history the president has held a formal event to announce nominees to the federal bench other than the Supreme Court. On the international front, Tuesday marked the 24th anniversary of the brutal massacre in Tiananmen Square, where troops and tanks with rifles targeted students protesting the government in the center of Beijing. On Weibo, a Chinese social media outlet, the people of China are increasingly speaking their minds. However, little is mentioned of the tragic event. The details, including the number of deaths at Tiananmen Square, still remain unclear. Well, back here on the home front, right here in the borough of the Bronx, the lawsuit to keep the food distributor Fresh Direct from moving to the Harlem River Yards has been dismissed. Community groups challenged the decision to grant millions of dollars to keep the company in New York, and also stated the environmental review of the project was flawed. The state of New York and the borough president's office have offered grants and tax breaks to the company and have urged Bronxites that Fresh Direct will be a large generator of jobs. Those are the headlines, and we'll continue to give those to you every week right here on Open with latest news and international news. Well, the BronxNet family has suffered a loss, and it is with a heavy heart that we announce Ibrahim Gonzalez passed away on Tuesday, June the 4th. On behalf of our Open team, we offer our deepest condolences to his friends, his family, and we want to share his latest BronxNet story. His latest BronxNet story was Starlight Park, and it was recently renovated, providing free recreational space for Bronxites to enjoy. Ibrahim covered the story. We want to show it to you in remembrance of him.
We're in the newest park on the Bronx River, the newest emerald in the necklace of the Bronx River Greenway, Starlight Park.
Just opened a couple months ago, and already we're seeing the public really coming into the space and using it in so many different ways. People are coming with their families and having picnics. School leagues and school teams are coming and playing soccer or baseball. We have kids just riding on their own and going on riding their bikes through the park. So we're already really excited about all the use the park is getting.
As you cross over the 177th Street Bridge, you're dazzled by the vista of the Bronx River running through the bucolic setting of the newly restored Starlight Park. Hey, How about that kayak?
It's a 10-foot loon. It's a recreational kayak. It's the sort of thing that you can use on lakes or, in our case, in small rivers. It's a fun kayak for just getting around from place to place. It's kind of wide and short. You don't want to go any long distances with it, but it really serves the purposes for what's available here on the Bronx River. And generally, we use this as one of our guide boats.
And Damien provides some docking tips for the newbies.
Hard paddle in the back. Stop paddling in the front for a second and just wait. The river's going to bring you. Okay, now both stop yourselves, put your paddles in the water and just hold them in. There you go.
The floating docks on the Bronx River are one of the few places in New York City where you can kayak or canoe for free.
It was magical.
It was really cool. The river is really pretty. So.
Such a beautiful river, and we got a new stereo system too for free.
The features of the park include multi-purpose playing fields, playgrounds with spray showers, basketball courts, multi-purpose pathways, and floating docks on the river. More than 3/4 of a mile of new greenway will connect Starlight Park with Bronx Park to the north, Concrete Plant Park, Hunts Point Riverside Park, and Barretto Point Park to the south. And if you follow the sound of the drums, you might just be lucky enough to catch the Puerto Rican rhythms of Dr. Drum and Bombayo. Starlight Park, yet another recreational and environmental experience to be enjoyed right here in our beautiful borough of the Bronx.
Well, Ibrahim's contributions to our station will never be forgotten. He will remain in our thoughts and our prayers. Well, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll take a look at a peaceful approach to media.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
BronxNet and the Center for Global Peace Journalism at Park University have come together to host an exclusive workshop led by Professor Stephen Youngblood, a two-time J. William Fulbright Scholar who has taught in 12 different countries for the United States State Department, UNICEF, USAID, and People to People International. We're pleased to be joined by him today via Skype. And Stephen, good to have you here with us on the show.
Good morning. It's always good to be on BronxNet.
Good. So when we talk about peace journalism, when we talk about peace, how do you break down what exactly is peace journalism?
So by definition, peace journalism is when reporters and editors make choices that improve the prospects for peace. So what this means in a practical way is that peace journalists are very careful about the words that they use, very careful about the way that they tell stories to avoid being inflammatory. What I always tell the journalists I work with is to consider the consequences of your reporting. So I think traditional journalism all too often simply reports and doesn't give it much thought after that. I think peace journalists want to take responsibility for what happens after they report. And I think that this is applicable not only abroad in a lot of the places I've been. I've just returned from Kyrgyzstan and Lebanon, for example, but certainly those are lessons that are important here in the U.S. as well.
So what are students actually going to be able to learn through this workshop? What are going to be the takeaways, if you will?
Well, so the workshop will be very hands-on. So the idea of the workshop, actually we're calling it a boot camp. The idea of the boot camp is that the students will get some basics about peace journalism, what it is, the way it's practiced, some of the principles and so on. But then there will be a great deal of practice. So what we'll be doing every day is going out and doing some reporting in a peace journalism sort of fashion. And then at the end of the week, we'll take all of the reports that they did Monday through Thursday and create a program on Friday that will then, we'll see what happens with it. It may end up on BronxNet, it may end up online, but at any rate, I know it will be some excellent work. And so in terms of the takeaways, I'm a big believer that in any workshop that you need to have both theory and practice. So I think that the most important takeaways will be the pieces that they produce.
I'm smiling because I know it'll end up somewhere for sure, because we're not just going to let it go anywhere. It's gonna end up somewhere. So when we talk about peace journalism, you've had the opportunity to travel to various places. We gave a little bit of your biography, working for the U.S. State Department, UNICEF, USAID. So you have an opportunity to see terrorism at its worst, world disasters at its worst, and how we have the ability as media to be able to give the public, I should say, a bird's eye view. But how do we shift our lens, if you will, to create a more peaceful tone when we're looking at some of the things that we're seeing today? We're looking out there, we're seeing tornadoes, we're seeing wars. How can we approach this from a different perspective?
Well, I mean, I think that's the million-dollar question, right? So in terms of Lebanon, one of the things that I discovered when I was there was that even though I teach this sort of media awareness, media sensitivity, that I myself was really taken in by a lot of the media-created stereotypes before I went to Lebanon. So I wrote a piece on my blog that starts along the lines of, when I told friends and colleagues that I was going to Lebanon, everyone was aghast. The immediate reaction, of course, is, well, you're going to get stabbed, you're going to get killed, and so on. And so where does that impression come from? And I think it comes from some stereotypes and some media narratives that the mainstream media traditionally feeds into. So the example that I use on my blog again is that the same week that there was unrest in the Lebanese city of Tripoli, there was unrest in Stockholm, Sweden. Well, the difference between the two is that the unrest in Stockholm, Sweden is inconsistent with our media narrative of Sweden as this peaceful, idyllic place. So we tend to consider something like that an aberration. Whereas when there's violence in Lebanon, we throw up our hands and say, well, there the Lebanese go again. And the fact is that the time that I was in Lebanon, I never once felt threatened or felt in danger in any way. And, the same can be said of the media narratives about places in the U.S. So the last time I was in the Bronx in October, I had a very interesting discussion with some of my students and indeed some Bronx Next staff about the media perceptions of the Bronx. And I don't need to tell you what those are.
Absolutely. And we know that we've always had a negative stereotype, but we've been able to counter that. They said the Bronx is burning, but we don't believe that anymore. We know that the Bronx is booming. So give us a little bit about this summer. How can students actually partake? Who's available to take part in this peace journalism workshop?
Right. Well, I think that is an excellent question for Marissa White, the BronxNet Youth Coordinator, who is coordinating all this. And I'm sure that you can pass along to the viewers her contact information, and if they're interested, I know that she can give them all the particulars and get them hooked up.
Okay, we'll make sure we get Marissa, and we can put the information at the bottom of the screen. We always do, that you can get in contact with Marissa. But before we let you go, got a couple more questions for you. Number one, when we look at what we're watching today, mass media, mainstream media, what immediately comes to mind from your perspective, given the fact that you come from a peace journalism background now?
Well, as a peace journalist especially, you hate to see the lack of professionalism, the superficiality. So, as you know, the George Zimmerman trial is getting underway, and I hate to even look, because it's going to be a circus. And I had written about that a little bit earlier, the fact that the media have already tried and convicted George Zimmerman. Now, I'm not saying that he's not guilty. I don't know. But the media have certainly tried and convicted him. And so as a peace journalist, you consider what are the consequences of our reporting. What I would ask is, what happens if George Zimmerman is acquitted? What are the consequences of that? What will happen, and how much of that reaction will be attributable to the media hype and to the media hysteria. So those are the sorts of things that peace journalism talks about, not just war and peace, but all sorts of issues about covering crime, covering elections, and so on.
But admittedly, when you come from that perspective, you have to admit that perspective is the overwhelming minority these days when it comes to mainstream media.
It is the minority. However, I would counter and say just because it's the minority doesn't mean that it's not the right way of doing things. Because as I teach peace journalism, the journalists, most of them come to discover that peace journalism is simply good journalism. It's simply being objective and checking and double checking and not feeding into stereotypes and not perpetuating rumors and so on. It's something that good journalists should be doing anyway. But unfortunately, as we all know, good journalism, there's a dearth of good journalism, both in the U.S. and around the world.
When you talk about this and you see where we are today, we had a reversion because there was one time when we really were operating like that, and now we know how media is today. Are you optimistic that possibly we can really return back to the days of old and good old-fashioned journalism?
Well, I don't know that I would say optimistic necessarily. I would say this, that wherever I go with my peace journalism message, that once people understand what it is, that people are very, very receptive. Individual reporters and journalists are very receptive to the idea. Where the real uphill struggle is I think at the corporate level, at the political level, because both in the U.S. and abroad, there are strong political agendas that are driving news and driving news gathering. So as I teach peace journalism, we don't have blinders on. We're not naive, and we know that this is going to be an uphill struggle. I just think that based on what I've seen, that it's a struggle worth fighting.
Steve Youngblood, thank you so much for sharing with us. And as we said, he's a two-time J. William Fulbright Scholar, serving and teaching in 12 countries for the U.S. State Department, UNICEF, USAID, People to People International, conducting that summer workshop that you can find out more about here on BronxNet. Steve, thanks again.
It's my pleasure. I'll see you all next week.
All righty. Take care now. Well, we got to take a quick break, but guess what? When we return, we're going to find out about the Carey Lead Center for Tennis and Learning. But first, the groundbreaking of the Carey Lead Center for Tennis and Learning recently took place, adding a new and large chapter to the success of a now 20-year-old Bronx Tennis Classic. It will become the New York Junior Tennis League's flagship center right here in our borough. And our BronxNet reporter, Veronica Boapham, has more.
Right now you may see nothing but rubble behind me, but it will soon be a great facility for our kids to play.
Today is the groundbreaking of the Carey Lead Center for Tennis and Learning. This has been 10 years in the making, and it's an amazing public-private partnership with the City of New York and the Parks Department, where private donors and public funding has come together to make this incredible resource for the kids of New York City.
The building is in one of the most beautiful parks in the country, probably. So we tried to protect the park, and even though it's a quite large building, we actually sunk it into the ground, and so the courts are depressed below grade, and you don't see the backs of stands, and the building itself looks half as big as it actually is.
To have a facility like this that's being built with the stadium, with the classrooms, with the offices, is just exceptional for the Bronx community.
We speak of economic development and housing and other great things that are happening in the borough. The other thing that we want to concentrate on is having tourist attraction and destination points. Now that we have the Carey Leeds Tennis Center, it's going to not only afford our children the opportunity to continue to play a different sport that's not always necessarily made available to them, but it's also going to help us invite other people from outside of our boroughs so they can see what the new Bronx looks like.
This is a dream come true. If Carey were here, he'd be wandering around the room with his great personality, thanking everybody, hugging everybody, and he had a terrific personality.
You don't know how you're going to touch another person's life or how they're going to touch yours. I'm just looking at the children today. I just want every one of them to be a champion in life, to just be the best they can be with their academics, with their tennis, and most importantly, their character.
With tennis as the new focus here in the Bronx, we may see a Nadal or Williams on the rise. So stay tuned. For BronxNet, I'm Veronica Boapham.
weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
Well, as you saw, for over 40 years, the New York Junior Tennis and Learning has actually helped children to learn values such as sportsmanship, discipline, and respect. Now here to share more about the organization and their new building in the South Bronx is Deborah Antoine, President and CEO of the New York Junior Tennis and Learning, Michael Gill, and Carlos Cuevas, members of the NYTL. And thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Good morning.
Thank you. It's got to be an exciting time, especially here in our borough, because you hear a lot about the major sports. We're encompassed with Yankee Stadium, and we know that it's, baseball is big here, but tennis is huge also in the borough of the Bronx.
Well, it is. And it's been huge for a lot of years, and lots of years ago, 60, 70, 80 years ago, there were lots of people playing tennis in Crotona Park, and then a period came in the city where there wasn't that much tennis being played in Crotona Park or any other sports being played in Crotona Park. And about 20 years ago, the New York Junior Tennis League decided to organize an international tennis tournament at Crotona Park and invited players from around the world, international players from around the world, to come to that tournament. That was 20 years ago. Today, Crotona Park is a much different place, and for 20 years there's been publicity about the Bronx because of the New York Junior Tennis League's tournament called the Bronx Pro Tennis Classic, or I guess it's Bronx Emblem, that is the sponsor of it now, and Carlos has been the chairman of that for many years.
Remember?
I do remember.
What the Bronx was like? You remember Howard Cosell spread the camera, the Bronx is burning.
Mm-hmm.
Now you take a look. We had President Carter, President Reagan come to Charlotte Street and say, this is the epitome of urban blight. Now, a half a mile from Charlotte Street, you have Crotona Park, 126 acres of pristine parklands. Beautiful parks. You have 5 playgrounds, 4 baseball fields, and 20 of the most beautiful tennis courts you're yet to see. And what are we going to do? We are going to build the Carey Lead Tennis and Learning Center. But you know what? Why don't I turn it over to
Sure.
Yeah, and let us know a little bit about what can we expect in this center.
Thank you, Carlos. It's very interesting that in this past year, New York Junior Tennis League, which was founded 42 years ago by Arthur Ashe and Skip Hartman and others, this year changed its name formally to New York Junior Tennis and Learning. So we switched out the L from league to learning to more accurately reflect what is so important and what we really do and why we do what we do. So the Carey Lead Center represents this wonderful space for learning that will draw thousands and thousands of kids. There are 30,000 kids that are in walking distance to Crotona Park. So we have classrooms and community rooms. Kids will not only learn to play tennis, but they learn all those other important character development skills, academic skills that together make for a successful life.
Well, we've been out there covering for years, and we've used to bring our cameras out there, still continue to bring our cameras out there, and it's amazing to watch the development of young people who've actually progressed. And some we've been able to actually chart who started at young ages and now have matured on. And what are your thoughts about just the development down through the years?
What's happening in the Bronx is fantastic. By the way, the New York Junior Tennis League is a Bronx organization. It started in the Bronx. It started over at Macomb Sam Park, and that was 42 years ago. Now, during those 42 years, not only has the league, my God, the number of children that have come through, the number of doors that have been opened, the opportunities that have been given to these children. I can't begin to tell you. That's one of the things that keeps me chugging along and making sure and bugging Deborah, who needs no bugging, incidentally, because she's way ahead of us. But, it's important to open those doors for our children.
Michael, give us a little bit about this here. So give us what kids can expect, what the public can expect with the new center and with what's going on.
Well, I think what you can expect is a whole load of kids who you're never going to hear about, a whole load of kids you're never going to hear about in terms of they're not going to make it on the tennis tour, but they are going to get to college. They are going to perhaps continue to play tennis for their whole life and as a lifetime sport. But more importantly, there is just hundreds and hundreds of kids who are going to be coming from the 30 or 40 schools that surround Crotona Park, and from the 400,000 population area with 150,000 households. Those kids are going to be coming to Crotona Park and involved in tennis as a learning experience, which is, just a wonderful kind of thing. And by the way, it's not just the New York Junior Tennis League that's going to be there. There's going to be another program that's going to be run by an organization called the Women's Sports Foundation, which was founded by Billie Jean King. And it's interesting that we have a connect here with Billie Jean King on one hand and Arthur Ashe on the other hand, two of the most significant people in tennis in terms of what they did for the world beyond tennis. Her program is going to be run out of that facility as well, jointly with New York Junior Tennis and Learning. So we've got a wonderful thing there for young people who aren't going to become superstars in tennis. Maybe one or two will. That would be nice. But the important thing is that these people are going to be engaged in an activity that keeps them busy, keeps them focused, teaches them life skills. Deborah knows more about that than I do.
Right, and it's got and the good thing I think about too is sometimes when you look at schools and the fact that a lot of sports programs are cut out and a lot of these other activities that really are a part of a child's development, they're going to be able to get that there.
We're going to get it there, and what we do know, and what we've known for a long time, is that sports can make a big difference in a child's life. And what we know from some new research by the USTA Serves, which is the charitable arm of the USTA, is that kids who play tennis far exceed other expectations in terms of the number of A's they get in school, the number of hours they spend doing homework, how often they get accepted to college, and the level of college scholarships. So we know when we combine character education and tennis is the best sport in the world for teaching character. It's the only sport you call your own lines. You learn self-sufficiency, perseverance, how to act when you're winning, how to react when you're losing. And so when you combine that with academic support, tennis, and learning, it's all a wonderful combination. And at Carey Leeds, we'll be offering 6,000 free hours of tennis and instruction to kids every year.
This is a combination of private and public funds. This is putting together those two factors to bring this center about. By the way, I think I would be very neglectful if I didn't thank our public officials, our borough presidents, the Bronx delegation, for the support that they've given us throughout the years. Like our present borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr., has been terrific, and so has the whole Bronx delegation. And also the previous borough presidents, Freddie and Adolfo, they also helped quite a lot.
Been a long time coming. So for people who want to take part in this, and somebody's watching this for the very first time, might have a parent to say, listen, I've just heard about this wonderful thing. What do they do?
Okay, right away, go to our website, nyjtl.org, and sign up for our free programs this summer at Crotona Park. We have 20 finished courts. Phases 1 and 2 are finished. So sign up, come out and play. Beginning July 8th, we'll be running a 7-week free summer program. So just show up and play. And also on August 19th, we have Crotona Park Day. And so the entire community is welcome to come out for a wonderful day of carnival, activities, free tennis, and it will just be an absolute. So go to our website, nyjtl.org.
Okay. And so, Michael, the public is taking part in this. The kids are taking part in this. You got professionals. It's been a great partnership. Where do you see things going in the future?
Well, where I see things going in the future is a continuation of the trend that has happened since the New York Junior Tennis and Learning established that tournament in the park. For example, the New York Metropolitan Opera is going to be doing a concert in Crotona Park this summer. The New York Metropolitan Opera has never done a concert in Crotona Park as part of their summer program. That would not have happened if the New York Junior Tennis and Learning had not started the Bronx Tennis Tournament that attracted attention to this park and caused the repositioning of the image of the Bronx in a part of a lot of people. I think there's a guy named Donald who was listening, Donald Trump.
Yes.
Donald Trump had to know this was going on and decided, you know what, if the New York Junior Tennis and Learning can organize a professional tennis tournament in Crotona Park and bring people from around the world to that park, I can create a professional golf course in the Bronx as well, and he's doing it.
That's right. It's big things happening here in our borough.
And then you take the Kingsbridge Armory. What's going on there? I mean, with the ice skating. I mean, when you look at the Bronx and the many new things that are happening, hey, it's a new Bronx.
It is a new Bronx and a lot of new activities, and we want to thank you guys for coming and sharing with us, and best wishes. And of course, we want our parents to, if you feel like you want to get involved, all you got to do is go to the website. You said you got a summer program.
Yes, we do.
Free.
Free.
And that's key emphasis right there too, free. So all you got to do is just tap into the website. Let's get the website one more time.
nyjtl.org.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming.
Great. Thank you.
Best wishes.
And by the way,
yes,
our CEO is terrific. She's fantastic. This was not asked for, but you know, you give Caesar what is due to Caesar.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
She's done a terrific job.
And best wishes. We'll be stopping by.
Okay.
All righty.
Great.
We'll stay right there. We got to take a quick break. But guess what? When we return, we'll hear about an event that is designed to promote equality. But first, the Parks and Recreation Committee of Community Board 8 in the Bronx met to debate the paving of a Putnam Trail in Van Cortlandt Park. Now, our BronxNet correspondent, Arlene McCoker, was there, and she brings us the story.
A controversial Community Board 8 meeting ended with a vote on the future of the Putnam Trail. At issue whether or not the path that runs through Van Cortlandt Park should be paved with asphalt. The Parks Department has a design that would include doubling the current width so cyclists can have access, but well over 50 Save the Putnam Trail volunteers wants it to stay as it is.
What a mess putting pavement on that trail is going to do to these people. They love that trail.
Testimony was heard at Manhattan College's Fishbach Hall on a wide range of opinions for and against. Save the Trail supporters say the path runs through heavily wooded areas of the park that serve as a sanctuary for weary city dwellers looking to bond with nature. It's also a place where, if changed, could forever disrupt the natural habitat that includes rare birds, snapping turtles, and more. They would support a stone dust surface instead.
There are few places left in our neighborhood where people of all ages from all over the Bronx can walk on the earth slowly and safely while being able to pause and enjoy the natural world. I fear that if we pave this little stretch of land, the communities as well as the fragile ecosystems will disappear.
Equally vocal are cyclists who say the path can be dangerous because of areas where iron rails are exposed. In addition to this, heavy rain causes muddy conditions that would end if the path was paved over.
It had nothing to do with wheelchairs. It had nothing to do with accessibility for people with disabilities. Everybody in this room will be disabled at some point, know someone that's disabled, or be temporarily disabled. We're only building for our future. And having an accessible path of travel that's firm, stable, slip resistance that will be maintained properly like asphalt will be the better choice for people with disabilities.
The Parks Department wants to clear up rumors that they will cut down trees, saying instead they will plant along the stretch. Along with this, proper drainage would be applied.
Our Parks Department, which has been instrumental in implementing the 1 Million Trees program and managing thousands of acres in New York City, will be cutting down 7 trees, 5 of which are already dead, and they will be planting 420 trees. This project will not be destroying the canopy over the trail.
In the middle are two groups that are not choosing either side. The Friends of Van Cortlandt Park and Friends of the Old Croton Aqueduct want a great park but will not choose to pave or not. Also at the meeting, wheelchair advocates who say a path unpaved will not allow them access and therefore does not comply with federal regulations. A very hot button issue that won't go away anytime soon. At the conclusion of the meeting, the subcommittee members voted whether or not they approve the paving of the Putnam Trail, and for that reason it will go before a full board for a vote. For BronxNet, this is Arlene McCoy.
And thank you, Arlene. State Senator Jose Serrano, City Councilwoman Melissa Mark Viverito, and the East Harlem Immigrant Service Network are coming together to combat stigma, homophobia, and transphobia in our community. Now, joining us to share more about their upcoming event to expand the dialogue about sexuality and gender identity is Justin Rush, Press Secretary and Community Liaison of the Office of Senator Jose Serrano, and Joe Presley from the Office of Council Member Melissa Mark Viverito, and we welcome you both to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so we talk about the issues of homophobia, transphobia, and somebody says, it's not that big. Yes, no, maybe so.
Oh, I definitely think it's big. We need to definitely make certain that there's visibility for our communities, not just in Greenwich Village. Lesbian, gay, bisexual folks, transgender folk, we live across the city. And unfortunately, in many of our communities, we are invisible. At least we want to be, many of us are seemingly invisible in the conversations in our communities. So the event that we're doing on Friday is really about increasing our visibility and then also building bridges between communities and making certain that we are included in ongoing conversations about participating.
Stereotypes and stigma big, so as we look at this, what are some of the ways that we're going to address breaking down some of these stereotypes and some of these stigmas?
I think one of the ways that we're going to do this through the roundtable discussion is that we're going to bring a number of different people in from the community. We're going to bring a number of different people from East Harlem, a number of different people from the South Bronx, people that are within the LGBT community, just to sit around and have a conversation. This is going to be an all-inclusive conversation. We don't want anybody to feel like they're left out, but we want to bring everybody together to be able to say, this is what's occurred in my life. This is how these things have made me feel. And to share experiences and to probably understand that everybody in the room probably has a lot more in common than they actually have that's different. And that's just one of the things that we want to have. We want to have a great all-inclusive conversation where everybody can really come and feel and have their voice heard and their opinion heard. So maybe we can come to a common ground and combat the stigma that exists within some of these communities.
How willing are people to come to the table to have this discussion?
I think increasingly so people are willing to do that. And so I'm going to give you sort of a personal experience, right? Mm-hmm. So my husband and I are married 2 years ago here in New York City. And what has happened, I think, even over the past 2 years with marriage equality coming to New York State, is that you're seeing more and more people just accepting that the fact that, as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender folks, that we are everywhere, mm-hmm. and that we are vibrant parts of our communities, and that increasingly I really do see that folks are willing to have these conversations. So even, for instance, in my own family, right? Mm-hmm. My brother works for transit, right? He lives out in Pennsylvania with his family. He comes to my house twice, 3 times a week to stay with my husband and I, because it's a long commute to get back to Pennsylvania, right? And it's just interesting to see, all that he just really even gets it even more so that just like he and his wife, my husband and I, we have the same lives that they have. And I think a lot of this is about folks just having honest and open conversations and people being out in their lives and really making certain that we're creating spaces to have conversations and moving the ball down the court even further.
And I also think that it's very important that we bring a member of the trans community, the transgender community. I know a lot of times in speaking with people, they feel like that's something that's left out. The T in the LGBT is left out. But we're going to be having a real conversation about what that experience is like and what living your day-to-day is like in as a facet of the community that it oftentimes feels left out. Mm-hmm. But we want everybody to be heard. We want every single person in this roundtable discussion. We're going to open it up from the people that are on the panel to the people that are in the audience. We want to have a real, honest, open dialogue with everybody that is there. And I think that, like, again, as I said, people will find that we have a lot more in common than we do.
Now, both of you work for political leaders, elected mm-hmm. officials, and some have said now, given the fact that the political world has seemed to embrace the LGBT community, that more and more people are actually coming on board. Give us your perspective on elected officials and having that conversation with elected officials, because the reality is, while many of them vote in the affirmative behind closed doors, not all have always been so embracing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you that the council member that I work for right, is fantastic.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here, right?
No, but it really is the truth.
Right.
I mean, she is the chair of she's a co-chair of the Progressive Caucus for the City Council, and even before it was popular, she understood the importance of talking about and dialoguing and building bridges with the lesbian gay community. Mm-hmm. She has no problems with my saying this. 2 of her brothers are gay, and it's personal for her, and so. And I know that she's not alone. I know that's true for State Senator Serrano as well. We are blessed to have in East Harlem a cadre of elected officials who want to have this dialogue, and not just now. So even with this event that we're doing on Friday, it's not just the conversation, right? We want to also build a continuum of conversation in community building beyond Friday as well.
That's where I was going, because just I was going to say, it's nice to talk.
It's
nice to come together and have a meeting.
Right.
We get together, have a nice time. But after that, then what? So you have this conversation, we have this dialogue. Where do you go from here after we've had this?
I think that one of the things that we're going to learn while we're having the conversation is we're going to get a lot of positive feedback, not just from the elected officials, but from the community as well. And if this is something that could eventually, I know my senators, Senator Serrano, and our office has been talking about, maybe this would be something that we could do on a very regular basis, open up the dialogue on a very regular basis, so where we can come to a common ground and see this is what, from the community, what they feel that needs to be done. Right. And if there's something that can be done on the legislative end, then that will be something that we can discuss with our elected officials. I know my state senator is very open to anything and everything that can be done as far as achieving equal rights and human rights and making sure that everybody has access to the same things that everybody else does. And tolerance is very important. So we're very dedicated to this, and this is something that we're going to continue to put into place in our day-to-day.
How often do we see LGBT issues come across your desk or come into an elected's office? Because you have your constituency and you have your base of people, and people say different demographics come and bring different things. But how often are we seeing LGBT issues really reaching the desk of our electeds?
I know for us in the council member's office, we have a number of issues that folks present to us. I know just recently there was a violent attack of a young man walking down 116th Street who was attacked because of his sexuality. We've had issues, I know just recently, 6 months ago, I know I worked personally on an issue where a gentleman in the west side of our district, in Morningside Heights and in Manhattan Valley, actually he had an issue where his landlord was denying him the opportunity to renew his lease based on his sexuality. So these issues are definitely in our communities. Now, I will say that it's important that our elected officials and the faith-based community as well, that we all create spaces where folks can feel comfortable to come forward in our communities. All too often, still in 2013, folks believe that in order to address their issues, they have to go down to a downtown agency. Now, we're not saying that those agencies are important. They're critical, but also there are resources right in their own backyards that they need to avail themselves to. And we're hoping that this will open that dialogue up.
So, Justin, this Friday's the dialogue. Let's let the people know what's going on and what time.
So this Friday from 9 o'clock a.m. to 11:30 a.m. we're going to be hosting Bridging the Gap, Expanding the Dialogue. It's going to be held at the East Harlem Asthma Center on 110th Street. And we would love, this is going to be a great roundtable discussion. We would love for everyone to come out. We want to hear the voice of the people. We want them to interact with their elected officials. And we want to have an amazing conversation so that we can hopefully combat stigma within the East Harlem and in the South Bronx community.
And there you see the information right there on your screen, Bridging the Gap, Expanding the Dialogue, Friday, June the 7th from 9 to 11:30, as Justin said. And we want you to make sure that you make your way over there for that dialogue. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, this is a step forward in the right direction. Agree?
Definitely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we want to thank Justin and Joe for coming. Now, listen, if someone has an issue regarding LGBT issues, what advice do you give them in terms of like contacting the electeds and stuff of that nature? What would you say?
I would say definitely call, and I'll give you my information.
Go right ahead.
Call the council member's office. Our number is 212-828-9800. We have a number of folks who will help you, who will assist you in any way that you need help. We will direct you also to other agencies that could be helpful to you. But I would strongly suggest that if you're facing any issues around bias or discrimination, to definitely reach out to your elected official's office, whether it's our office.
And you can always stop by to Senator Serrano's district office on 104th and Lexington. It's our number is 212-828-5829. There's always a staff member that would be helpful in addressing those concerns and needs.
All righty, Justin Rush and Joe Presley, and we thank them both for coming and sharing with us. And we'll tell people once again, Friday, June 7th from 9 to 11:30. Make your way out there. Thank you guys for coming and sharing with us. All righty, and we got to take a quick break. But listen, when we return, we're going to find out about an artistic celebration of our community. You'll understand in a few seconds.
Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool. Really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately. Because time lost is brain lost.
Low-fat cheese sandwiches on whole wheat bread. chewy, and good for you. Snacks high in calcium help build strong bones, and foods rich in fiber are good for your heart. So you have the power to dominate. Can your food do that? Run, throw, think, eat better. Find out more at smallstep.gov.
These things we count on every day started as ideas. Ideas from the minds of African Americans. Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Well, on June 14th, you've seen her on television. You've seen her in the movies. She's a beautiful actress and Bronx native. She's scandalicious. Kerry Washington is actually going to host an enchanted evening celebrating the arts and culture of our community. And here now to share more about the event is Andrea Rockauer, board member of the Lehman Center for the Performing Arts. And Andrea, good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's delightful to be here, and we are so excited about this event. It's a board-sponsored fundraising event, and it's on Friday evening, June 14th. We're going to start out at 6:30 p.m. in the concert hall lobby with delicious food, wine, and desserts, catered by the Babalu restaurant on East Tremont Avenue. I don't know if you've been there. The food is
Wonderful.
delicious.
Yes, I have.
Oh, and the restaurateur there, John Gungi Rivera, is personally going to be supervising the event. So after all this good food, we're going to move into the concert hall, and our guests are going to be seated on the stage. It gives that sort of intimate, more cabaret feeling. And you let my secret, you let the cat out of the bag there. We're having Kerry Washington, and perhaps many of your viewers are also fans of Scandal, where she plays Olivia Pope, and the Washington Insider. She's also been in so many films recently. Her current one is Peoples, Django Unchained, and Last King of Scotland, so many. She's going to be joined by her co-star on Scandal, Norm Lewis, who was also in the recent Broadway revival of Porgy and Bess. He played Porgy, great singer, really, wonderful. And they will also be joined by the Chris Gillespie Trio, who perform regularly at the Carlisle Hotel, and really replaced Bobby Short there. And so it's going to be really a lovely, intimate evening. It's a fundraiser for the center to help support our ability to bring all these wonderful international orchestras and dance companies to the Bronx for our community residents.
Give us a little bit about the center, because people don't know. You do a lot of great things. You have a lot of great concerts and things going on there, but obviously, of course, it costs money, and this, of course, helps to do that.
It does. I think, we've been in business since 1980, And over the years, there's just been such a host of famous celebrities and international troops. But I think most people perceive us, since we're on a city university campus, that, oh, we're probably, you know, all our costs are covered by the city government. It's really not the case. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, so we're really responsible for our own budget. And trying so hard to keep ticket prices at affordable levels for Bronx community residents is a challenge, because ticket income really doesn't cover all our expenses. You know, to bring a Patti LaBelle, to bring a major international orchestra to the concert hall is very costly, labor expenses, and over the years government grants have really dwindled nationally, you know, for arts organizations. So we've been very lucky. We've worked very hard. We have a wonderful chair of the board of directors, Father Richard Gorman, who's very involved in life in the Bronx.
Yes.
And our wonderful executive director, Ava Bornstein, who really works very hard. She's a great deal maker for bringing these artists to our borough. And so we really need the support from the community, and one way they can do it is by attending this event on Friday evening, June 14th.
So June 14th, people will come to the event and they'll have the opportunity. Now, can you give us a little bit about what Carrie and Norm will be doing throughout the course of the day?
Well,
I should say the evening.
Sure. There's going to be a dialogue between Kerry Washington and Norm Lewis. They're going to talk a little bit about their careers and experiences. They're going to take questions from the audience, and then Norm Lewis will perform several selections from Broadway shows, and then the Chris Gillespie Trio will perform also some of those classic Cole Porter standards that we all know the words to and like to sing along to. So it should be a very diverse evening, actually, with a lot of different styles and behind-the-scenes stories. What goes on at Scandal?
Right.
You know.
Everybody wants to know what's coming up next season.
Yeah, those steamy scenes, too.
Yes. So people have the opportunity to actually talk about that. If you could give us a little bit more, because when people look at performing arts, you look at schools these days, and some of the first things that get cut out of the budget, music and the arts. How important is music and the arts in the life of people as well as the community from your perspective?
Well, I think it really affects the quality of life for residents in our borough. Having a place they can come to, have a shared experience of the arts. A lot of the programs that we present really celebrate and reflect particular cultural traditions. For example, I mean, just looking at dance, we have Russian ballet, we have Dance Brazil, we have Chinese acrobats, we have Ballet Folklorico de Mexico. All these really celebrate the folkloric traditions of our residents. And we have this special program, in fact, of special $10 tickets for children 12 and under. And wow, it's really been a very successful program. We have a grant from Con Edison that has helped with that to underwrite the tickets. You see large extended young families come with children, their nieces and nephews, and you can see the children during the intermission or at the end trying the moves they see on stage. It's really an education for them. I must tell you, artists, even the big celebrity artists, the Patti LaBelles, the Smokey Robinson, talk about how wonderful it is performing for Bronx audiences. They say they get love from our audiences in ways they don't always see at other venues. So I'm very proud of that.
Because when you really look at it, they're used to performing, and sometimes you see them in, mega coliseums and mega stadiums. And of course, while, the Lehman Center is big, it's not mega, but yet and still it has that mega feel on the inside. And so what are they saying? I mean, there's a huge takeaway from them when they come and have the opportunity to share in a venue such as this.
Indeed, and often they will interact with people in the audiences, chit-chat with them, invite them up on stage. A lot of the dance companies, because we have 2,300 seats, but it's certainly more manageable than Radio City Music Hall. So they'll invite some of the audience members on stage to try some of the dance moves with an organization like Dance Brazil, to try some of the capoeira moves with some of the young people or some of the folk dances. I think Ballet Folklorico Mexico actually came out into the audience and drew people from the audience in the aisles to dance with them. It was just delightful, So there is that kind of special audience involvement that you don't get at other venues.
So what do you have upcoming after this event? What's on the calendar coming up?
Well, actually, this Saturday night at 8 p.m. we have Willie Colon, a great salsa and Latin jazz performer. And this summer in August, we're having a tribute to Ismael Miranda with Auntie Montañez and other guests. And we're just putting the finishing touch on our 13-14 season. And I think audiences can look forward to a bit of classical music with some international orchestras, some more salsa, some freestyle, some wonderful dance events. I think there's something for everyone there.
So how often would you say you can catch an event at the Lehman Center?
I think during our peak season from the end of September through the beginning of June, most of our events are on the weekends. And I think almost every weekend there's something going on, something exciting.
Well, we tell people make sure you come on out, but we want people to definitely come on out June 14th, that you can be a part of this very special event that's designed to help the Lehman Center for the Performing Arts, and they certainly have been doing some great things here in our community, and we want to make sure it keeps going.
And I just want to say, if people want to buy tickets, they can go to our website at lehmancenter.org. They can stop in at the box office or call the box office at 718-960-8833.
All righty. Well, Andrea Rockower, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Good to have you. You stay here. You got to come back and tell us more stuff when stuff is happening.
I look forward to it.
All righty. All righty. Well, unfortunately, that about wraps it up for this edition of Open. It's definitely been a pleasure coming into your homes. We, of course, want to thank our guests for joining us and you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, guess what? Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. All you got to do, catch the Recablecast 10 p.m. Cablevision's Channel 67. If you're on Verizon Files, you know you can catch us on Channel 33, or anytime you catch us on the World Wide Web, where? www.bronxnet.org. Well, that about wraps it up, so have a great week. Don't forget to keep your heart, your mind, and most of all, this channel wide open. Darren Jaime signing off and saying God bless and have a great week. Stay.
Hello, I'm Carla Cadenas, and you can check out Open 2.0 at 4:30 on Fridays, or on the web at www.bronxnet.org.